All right, that's the end of that. Good work, good work. Pleased. So tonight was my heavy deadlift night. I'm backing off what you'd say conventional deadlifts at the moment, and I'm just working up to maxes on different forms of deadlift. So I recently did a very heavy trap bar deadlift. To be fair, I haven't uploaded that, but I got some very good weight on a trap bar, and I'm now working my deficit deadlift. So with the trap bar, I'm using a high handle, just getting power from a slightly higher starting point, and I'm also attacking from the other end as well on a deficit, and then working from a much lower starting point. Now, those of you who haven't tried the deficit deadlift before, I highly recommend it. It was something I had left out of my training for years because I'd tried it a handful of times over the years when I was a little younger and a little less experienced, and it just didn't feel right. To be honest with you, I was just doing it with bad form, didn't set myself up properly, and didn't give it a chance. And as soon as I got to about like 180 kilos, it just felt wonky, and I just didn't put any effort into the movement. But probably over the last 8, 9, maybe 10 years, which sounds like a long time to a lot of you, but when you've been training 30 years, it isn't that long. I've really started to get into like using a fuller range of motion, and I've just improved my mobility. Even though I'm getting older now, I'm 46, I'm still very concerned about mobility and just trying to be reasonably mobile for a bigger person. So I started incorporating deficit deadlifts a few years ago now, and I have found them so beneficial to my deadlift. That initial drive off the ground, life is easy when you go back to a normal deadlift. You feel like you're cheating almost. It feels almost like using a high handle trap bar. It is so much easier than a deficit deadlift. Now, I used one of my slightly thinner bumper plates today because I knew I wanted to work up to a max set of 5. Now, deficits, I don't necessarily think I would recommend maybe singles on a deficit deadlift. I think potentially you can lend yourself a bit open to injury because it can put your body into a precarious position. I'm blessed with weird dimensions for deadlifting. I've got very, very, very long arms, which are a disadvantage for pushing movements, but they're a great advantage for pulling movements. So my arms are well past my knees anyway. When I lock out, my hands are barely past my knees. The bar is barely past my knees. I've just got really long arms. So the deficit deadlift is a relatively safe exercise for someone with my dimensions. If you're someone with slightly different dimensions to me, if your arms are maybe a little shorter, then maybe the deficits aren't for you, or maybe you just want to start with a thinner plate. You might use a 5 bumper plate or a 10 bumper plate or something like that, rather than a thicker 20 bumper plate. Or, whatever you've got available to you. But they are really, really beneficial. As I said, if you're normally someone that gets stuck off the ground, that sort of first initial 3-4 inches, a lot of people can maybe break the ground. When I say break the ground, I mean like pull it off the ground, and they get to around mid-shin, maybe just below the knee, and get stuck. So if you're one of those kind of people, and it happens to a lot of people, I've trained a lot of people over the years, and advised a lot of people and helped out quite a few people. And the majority of people tend to get stuck around there. It's not normally, once you get it up to your knees, unless it's absolutely ridiculously heavy, then it's just going to be heavy. But normally most people, once they get it up to around the knee, they can kind of grind it out. But it's that initial 4 inches or so where you get it to kind of the top of your shins, mid-shin. That's where people get stuck. So throwing these in really, really helps with that initial drive off the ground. But as I said, if you're doing it, take your time with them. Do it safely. Teach yourself the technique. I wouldn't recommend anything lower than 5 repetitions. 5 to 10 repetition range is what I would ordinarily recommend. If you go beyond 10 repetitions, I find sometimes your form can break down because you just get a bit tired. But that kind of 5 to 10 repetition range tends to keep things quite sweet for most people. Now, the idea of today is obviously my max weight day, because you guys know, or if you're new to the channel, maybe you don't know, I'll explain. I have my 3 movement patterns, which is the hinge, so my deadlift basically. I have the squats, and I have my pushing movements. Now, on my hinge movements, on all of them, I break it into 3 different workouts. So on my hinge pattern, I have a heavy deadlift session, whereby I'll choose a form of deadlift between the trap bar, the standard axle from a standard range of motion, and a deficit. And I kind of cycle between those 3, depending on how I'm programming and what I'm doing at the time. And that ordinarily is, I work up to a heavy set of 5, a heavy triple, a heavy double, or a heavy single. In my next workout, I'll do a bodybuilding style workout. And there I will essentially do your other things like your cable rows, your hammer strength machines, your lat pull downs, your pull-ups, chin-ups, those kind of things, pullovers. And they tend to be in the kind of 10 all the way up to about 30 rep range. I don't really tend to drop below 10 in that. Now, I find that workout is great for muscle, kind of just building muscle, building endurance, and it's also great for recovery as well. It gives the old joints a bit of a rest, and it just helps you kind of avoid or stave off some of those overuse injuries. And then my 3rd workout is my support workout. And that is where I will ordinarily choose, I've got a bank of exercises, but I ordinarily choose 2 or 3 exercises that I personally find very beneficial for the deadlift. So it's things like the pen lay row, the barbell row, bench supported rows, sometimes T-bar rows, high pulls, things like that. Now, sometimes, to be fair, I also throw deficits in, but at the moment, the way I'm programming, I'm turning deficits into a primary focus of mine rather than an assistant move. Just because I peaked recently, well, relatively recently, on the deadlift at 420 kilos for a handful of reps. I can't remember, was it 2 or 3 reps? Seen it on the channel, 2 or 3 reps, and I also managed to hit 400 for 5 reps. So in terms of long-term goals, 380 I think would be a realistic-ish long-term goal on a deficit deadlift. That today was a tester to see kind of where I am, and I was pleased. In my head, I was thinking 340-ish. Today, I wasn't quite sure, 340 for 5. But when I pulled the 340 for a single, I didn't bother doing any more reps than that. I went straight in and banged on another 10. 380 would have been a little bit much for today. I think I might have got it off the ground, but because I haven't pushed a very, very heavy deadlift, deficit deadlift for a while, it's probably just not worth the risk. And 360 for 5 is nothing to turn my nose up at. I'm pretty pleased with it. But what I will do, I will work this movement for a few weeks. My programs ordinarily, I tend to run them for 6, maybe 8 weeks. I kind of go by feel. Until I'm feeling a bit burnt out on it, or I get bored of it sometimes. Because as I said, I just train for fun. I'm just a big lump in my back garden, having a bit of fun, enjoying training. So I don't take it all that seriously. And, you know, I just say that to anyone, just enjoy your training. And at the moment, the deficit was calling my name. It was saying, Mark, come and try me out, see what you feel like, see what you can do. And so I had to go today, and it felt nice. I won't be pulling a heavy deficit deadlift for probably about another 10 days, thereabouts. So sometime in about a week and a half-ish will be the next time I hit my deficits again with a maximal weight. And I do try not to put too much pressure on myself, because I just enjoy training, and you have to be quite instinctive and quite intuitive with your training, and just learn to listen to your body. If your body's feeling it on the day, awesome. If it's not, back off a little bit. As I said, in my head, I thought I could get 340, knowing where I kind of am with my kind of regular deadlifts and my trap bar the other day. I thought 340 would be okay for 5, but I got to the 340 and it was fine. Now, in terms of my warm-ups and things, you guys will have seen that my first few sets I did for 5 reps. I don't go above 5 on my heavy days. The purpose of today isn't about muscle building, it's about testing my strength, to be honest with you, and demonstrating my strength, testing and demonstrating my strength. My other 2 workouts are about building muscle and building strength. Today is just about seeing where my strength is. So if you're looking to do this kind of routine, but you're looking at it from a, you know, hypertrophy point of view, then, you know, 5 reps plus is what I'd recommend. 5 to 10 reps is what I'd say. But over the course of a week or so, I get that full range of repetitions. So I get my very low rep stuff in where, you know, I use a lot of strength. And then I get those moderate repetitions in that support workout. Because my support workout is ordinarily anywhere from about 5 to 12 repetitions, generally speaking. And then, as I said, I've got my bodybuilding workout where I have my kind of 10 to 30 repetitions. So over the course of the week, I'm getting a good range of repetitions. And in the long run, that's what we want. You know, you want to be pretty well-rounded. You want to be obviously very strong, but you want to be in okay shape. You want to actually have a little bit of endurance, muscular endurance. You want to have a little bit of cardiovascular fitness as well. So I think it's very easy for us all to get caught up in just one style of training. And you've probably heard me use that terminology before, be a jack of all trades, master of some. Be pretty good at everything, be pretty strong, be pretty fit, be in okay shape is what I'd recommend, particularly when you've been around the block a while. Sort of being really powerful, but then getting out of breath walking up the stairs, or getting out of breath, you know, playing with your kids or something like that. That's not necessarily the best way to live your life, in my opinion. You know, you want to actually be able to function in the real world. You know, no matter how heavy you are, you don't want it necessarily to be what I'd say just weight for the sake of weight. I'm reasonably heavy in kilos. To be fair, I've lost a little bit of weight recently. I was walking around at about 135, 136. I'm about 133 at the moment. I always mess around with my diet and things, so I've started to lean out a little bit, get the old beach body going, eh? Something like that. But even so, you know, at 133-ish kilos, I'm pretty fit with it, and I try to be pretty fit, so I don't use being heavy as an excuse for not being fit. So, you know, I can't recommend enough. Make sure you get your cardio in. Make sure you get your cardio in. It is so important. The most important muscle is the heart. You know, you guys who have been with me for a long time know most of my family, like my elders, passed on through heart problems. Like genetically, we all have bad hearts in our family, or most of us have bad hearts in our family. For years, I've been obsessed with cardio and being conditioned and being, you know, decently strong, but pretty conditioned. And when I talk about condition, I'm not just talking about, you know, having a few veins and lines and a six pack. I mean condition as in like your heart conditioning. Can you actually go? Can you do the assault bike? Can you go on a treadmill? Can you run? Can you do burpees? Can you, you know, do 100 kettlebell swings? And you know, all those kind of things. It's really, really important that you do your best to try and incorporate that stuff. And just be a bit more complete, because as I said, you just want to be all round healthy. Don't be all show and no go, as they say. Don't have that lovely Ferrari body and a little Fiat engine. You know, you want to be pretty well rounded, and the muscle and the strength is wonderful, but in real terms, is it going to make you live longer? I don't know. Make you look good and make you, you know, feel good about yourself, knowing that you can pick up a house or something. But in real life, in reality, you know, which is better to have a strong bicep, you know, a big bench press, or a strong heart? You know, this is just advice from an old man who's been around the block a little bit. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to go and eat. Not sure what my wife's cooked for me tonight, but it'll be nice, no doubt, no doubt. My wife is a pretty good cook. Thank you very much to everyone who has been taking the time to watch the videos and comment and things like that. And again, if you're new to the channel, and if you just enjoy a drama-free channel with a big lump lifting stuff and then having a chat about it afterwards, this might be your new favorite channel. So don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so as I just said, do not forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. You guys take care, and I will speak to you soon.